All right, well, let's get into this because we have a lot to talk about. First thing we want to do is we want to just take a look back at the programming in its entirety. And to do that, we have a very special guest. And anytime we have this man on, I mean, it just feels like you're forming Voltron again. We're all back together.
It's waiting to see where you went with that.
Yeah, so that man's voice that you just heard, or if you're watching it, you already know, is our good friend Pat Sherwood. Pat, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see some athletes throwing down, and just kind of get back to a little bit of normalcy, a little bit of fun with fitness.
So let's go through the programming because this is your passion. Tommy and I joke about it all the time. You used to come up to us and slap us on the chest and be like, "You're a fan of fitness."
I remember those good days.
Yeah. So let's start with event number 1, Friendly Fran. What'd you think about that?
Man, I think what's interesting about all these events is you have to frame them in the context of who they were specifically written for, right? I mean, these workouts, I know that both you and Tommy are pillars of fitness, but these workouts were not written for us. Yeah. It would be wildly inappropriate. Maybe the 1,000-meter row, I can mail that in about 5 minutes, but everything else, wildly inappropriate. I mean, Fran, in and of itself, 21:15.9 at the regular loading with chin over bar pull-ups is terrible and devastating, and nobody needs that dosed up, right? And then if you were to say, what's the worst part of Fran? It's like, the sets of 15. Sets of 15 are so bad. Well, man, the heck with that for games athletes. They just stuck with the 21s. I mean, are you kidding me? 3 rounds of 21 and 21. At the prescribed loading with chin over bar pull-ups, I would have thought that would have been a death sentence. Yet you bumped up the weight to 115 and 85, and then you made it chest to bar at 3 rounds of 21 and 21. When I first saw that, I was like, ooh, I wonder if that missed the mark. Like, I wonder if it's so robust that it's not going to be this Fran-esque short, fast deal. But credit to Castro, man. People just, I couldn't believe how fast these games athletes were on Friendly Fran. I mean, Fraser did it in 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
I think people would kill for that, for their regular Fran time.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Unbroken. He did it unbroken in 3:08. I don't even know. I would have lost money that somebody would have done it unbroken. I would have lost money. And then you've got Tia doing it in 3:40. I mean, so this was still, for these athletes, it was Fran. It was what Fran is for me, you, or anybody else. It was exactly what they need to feel like I do when Fran happened. So I really liked it. I thought that was a beautiful homage to a classic named workout, but appropriately for what these people can do in 2020.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, like, Pat, you're a fan of that, like, 115 barbell, because that was the loading for the thrusters for the men, the 85 for the women, something that's, we've talked about this a ton, that people either go 95 or they go 135, they go 65 or they go 95, and that little middle ground gets lost a little bit. Were you a little tickled when you saw that loading kind of come out of the hopper?
We could break out the yellows. Break out the yellow placement. they don't get enough love. That 115 bar for the gentleman, that is underutilized, and I think a lot of athletes that have been around for a while see that bar and they're like, oh no, this is going to sting, and this might be, a 115 thruster for me is not a 115 thruster for Matt Fraser, right? For me, let's call Fran, if Fran's a moderate load, then you start getting in 115, that's, slightly heavy. 135 is a heavy thruster. But for Fraser, this isn't in his moderately heavy range. So when we're looking at these loadings over the course of all 7, somebody might be like, well, where's the light barbell? Well, relative to these athletes, they're that amazing that 115 for them. And if you do 3 unbroken sets of 21 thrusters with 3 unbroken sets of 21 pull-ups, you weren't weighted down by the barbell, right? I mean, so this was, that 115 was beautiful for them. Loved it.
Anything in there you would have tweaked?
No, like I said, I also have to admit when I would have missed the mark, and obviously, Dave did some good testing with these as well. But when I just first saw it, I was like, ooh, I wonder if that's going to slow some folks down. And of course, it did slow some folks down. But there was plenty that blew through it just as it should. So no, I thought that was a jewel.
All right, event 2, 1 rep max front squat. Why not 2 rep? Why not 3? Why not a weird rep range like 6?
You know, I do like the weird rep ranges. You know, you throw a 7 at somebody or whatnot, and you're going to see it become, I mean, not that a 1 rep is not as much physical and mental as it is, but I think, you know, I haven't chatted with Dave about these workouts, but just a classic big lift. You know, you're going to test strength, and if you want to get the crowd as fired up as possible, well, then you're going to see people lift a whole heck of a lot more weight with 1 rep versus a 5, 6, or 7. So let's get some big numbers on the board. Let's get some people fired up, and let's get those fired up people back into their affiliates and garages working out. So I think, you know, that was as much of a beautiful test as it was for people just love to see the big weight go up. Mm-hmm. I mean, and there were some, and again, just, we're going to beat this drum until it's dead. These athletes are superhuman and freakishly capable. You know, the gentleman, was it Griffith?
Griffin Raleigh.
Yeah, Griffin Raleigh, yep.
490.
Can you imagine
490
feel just like when you unracked it, what that would feel on your body? Not even trying to just unrack it and just what that would feel like.
That would be a phenomenal deadlift.
Yeah.
A phenomenal deadlift, let alone a front squat. Are you kidding me? And then, of course, you know, Tia's got to go ahead and set that one to at 313.
Yep.
I mean, it's almost just, it's nice to put in like a 1 rep just so you can sit back. Like there should be a team of engineers going, oh, this is now what human beings are capable of doing, like over the course of a weekend. Like any one of these performances would be a standalone amazing thing, let alone you shove all 7 into a couple of days. I was impressed. I mean, I'll give you this, if we'll dive into each one. I really like these workouts overall. I really do. I mean, we've got we got 2 couplets, 3 single modalities. Then you've got either 1 triplet and 1 chipper, depending upon how you want to break out Awful Annie. So you've either 1 triplet and a chipper or 2 triplets. Then you've got 3 monostructural components, 5 weightlifting, 5 gymnastics. Like it was pretty darn well done, from pulling off the ground to going overhead to strict movements to like, I think these are some darn good workouts, quite frankly.
And I'm kind of curious, like the 1 rep max front squat, it's not something we've seen ever at the games before. It's new programming as far as like the elites are concerned. We've seen it for team, we've seen the team have it before. We've seen some other variations at other sanctioned events as well. But what is it? I'm kind of curious because I look at the rest of the program. Like, what is it about that made front squat the choice over, say, a back squat or maybe an Olympic lift or something like that?
You know, it was interesting that, again, people love the Olympic lifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people would have loved to have seen a 1 rep max snatch or clean and jerk or whatnot. And you know, I don't know what the answer to that is, quite frankly. You know, you didn't get a back squat, but you got obviously some front rack position in Friendly Fran. You get a front rack position in receiving the barbell from Awful Annie. You get the front rack happening in the 1 rep max front squat that we're talking about now. So, you know, maybe you can make a case for the back squat, which potentially we've got some bigger numbers in there, but a front squat is generally a little bit more challenging and demanding than the back squat. So maybe there's a little bit more of that technical complexity thrown in just in a simple change from a back squat to a front squat. But you also never know what's going on in the mind with Dave, you know, because sometimes he will program over the course of several events like the Open, the Games, et cetera, with certain themes that he has in mind that you may or may not find out until it's all said and done. And so Dave might be operating right now on a particular theme also that we're not read in on, you know, but he also has a, and again, haven't spoken to him, but he does have a knack for just throwing a slight curveball to people. So maybe if he thought everybody had been going bonkers on the snatch and the clean and jerk and check out my back squat, this and that, and just hadn't seen the front squat pop up with as much love or be given the respect that it deserves, he could have been like, okay, we're going to give this lift a little bit of love. And maybe it's just like you said, because we never have. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself is unique.
All right, event 3, Damn Diane, and kind of in the same vein as Friendly Fran. Let's make this workout appropriate for this level of athlete, because they upped the deadlift to 315, and then you had 15 deficit handstand push-ups.
And this one they did do kind of like we talked about in Fran, which is, most of us regular human beings think that the round of 15 is, one of the worst ones. So this one they just did 3 rounds of 15 and 15 and kept with that nasty number. But just once again, I mean, the strict handstand push-up, 3.5 inches for the gentlemen, 2 inches for the ladies. And then, you're making the loading, if I got the loading right, about 1.4 times heavier than normal for men, 1.32 times heavier than women. So it is, pretty darn even right there. And with such a significant barbell loading of 315 and 205 and taking out the hip drive and what you would think would be some of the speed on the handstand push-ups and adding a bigger range of motion, you again would think this should be a slower event, right? This is going to be our second event that, Friendly Fran was not sub 3, but it was sub 4. It was for the fastest individuals out there. But now this was sub 3 minutes. They're doing Damn Diane in sub 3 minutes. Tommy was always a much more accurate prognosticator than I was. So potentially when this came out, I mean, I don't know if you were thinking sub 3 or sub 230 for Tia, by the way, sub 230. No way, right? 2 minutes and 28 seconds doesn't make any sense given the loading, what you have to do. It almost doesn't seem like you would be able to do just that many repetitions, miming them with a PVC pipe in your hands in 2 minutes and 28 seconds.
I don't think I could do it that fast if I skip the handstand push-ups.
Right. I mean, and this is another, there was quote unquote only, one heavy lift, one strength event. But I mean, these events, for as heavy as these loadings were, even, for regular humans like me, that thruster's heavy. Mm-hmm. To move the barbell, whether it's pulling it from the ground with a deadlift or the leg drive on the thruster, as fast as these top athletes move that loading on the bar, speaks to a level of strength, even though there's just only one rep max front squat out there, that is, it's almost like how much better these athletes get every year from 2015 to 16 to 17. Like it's not in a nice little linear progression. They just don't get 3% better every year. It's not like the housing market appreciates at 3%. There is some meteoric rises every single year, and these events, again, I think they just highlighted that, So I liked on Fran, we had below parallel, then we had leg drive to go on overhead, but it was with a press overhead that was assisted with the leg drive. Then I liked with Diane, we pulled from the ground compared to going to below parallel with Fran. And then while the overhead on Friendly Fran had a leg drive press, well, you still had a press with Diane. Of course, you were inverted, but you didn't have the leg drive that you did on. So it was 100% just pure, unadulterated shoulder strength. So once again, I really liked that. And I liked, even though the loading was heavy, it was paired beautifully with a strict, demanding gymnastics movement. So I thought it was a really nice couplet.
It's funny you mentioned, maybe immediately go back and look up some times from back in the day. Tia did Damn Diane with, a deficit strict handstand push-up in 228. When we had Diane at regionals, just straight up Diane, for the men, they were only doing 20 pounds more, and they were able to use their legs. Rich Froning did it in 214 that year. So
how does that work, Tommy? How is there only a 14-second discrepancy in that?
And they were basically moving the same weight, and Tia was doing a harder version of handstand push-ups at the time. I mean, she beat Marcus Hendren, she beat Scott Panchik, both of whom were top 10 at the games that year for that time and that workout. So it's insanely impressive.
And then obviously, they don't want to, I don't mean to sidetrack us, derail the show here, but like, again, they're just such freaks that if you were doing some handstand push-ups or strict movements or whatnot, you don't want to reach failure, you kick off the wall just like they did. They would kick off the wall for like 3 seconds for an arm shake, and then they're like, I'm recovered, good to go. Like, it was crazy. Watching her do that was crazy.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. That's the 1,000 meter row. And I saw a lot of people say, oh, this should have been longer. It should have been this. And I thought, if you think that, you're kind of missing the point of what I think they're trying to do here. And that's Pat uses some very colorful language to describe what people needed to do to go, all out on something like this. And I feel like that was the intention of this event.
Yeah. And again, 1,000 meter or 1,500 or 2,000 row, like, neither one's right or wrong, right? It just depends upon what you're going for. And no one's going to enjoy a 1,000 meter row. A 2,000 meter row is not harder or worse. It's just different. And some individuals might actually say they would prefer the 2,000 to the 1,000 just because you're going to have to bring a higher level of intensity for a shorter time domain right from the get-go because, you're having the distance. When you looked at all 7 events overall and you looked at the top like 2 or 3 best placements, we had a few short workouts, one kind of middle distance, if you would, and then one longer one. And this row kind of fit in with the shorter ones, but had he doubled it to the 2,000 meter row, it would have fit in very nicely with the middle distance. Friendly Fran was 3 minutes and change. Damn Diane was 2 minutes and change. 1,000 meter row was low 3s for the women to sub 3s for the men. So our first 3 events right now are all hovering in these short, explosive, super high intensity time domains. And so it's probably not just a random coincidence that the 1,000 meter row was chosen to fit in there as well. And it's nice to see something with no barbell.
Yeah.
Just a sheer monostructural event with nothing else to confound it. I like that, and we'll get to it later, but I also like the other event that was a single standalone.
Yes.
It's funny. I immediately think of the 1,000 meter row as one of those types of workouts, and Pat used to always say it so eloquently, where you just want to see the athletes suffer. And it's not really much. It's not necessarily that much about skill or strength or what you've been working on in the off season. Let's try and simplify the test and empty the tank.
Yes, and obviously there are some things which just help you out on the rower. Having Tommy's build and length, it helps out compared to being very short. Having weight helps to being not having weight, and obviously technique is critically important. But if all those things are relatively equal, then he or she will win. That just that day woke up and said, yeah, I'm willing to die today. I'm willing to die in the rower. I'm going to suffer, because it's just a suffer fest, is who all these athletes are fit. They're all capable, and all their legs and lungs and lats are going to be burning like no one else. And that rower is going to be I'm sure when that event was announced, all these events hurt. But I'm sure when that event was announced, they were just like, oh, no, just 1,000 meter row. Oh, what an opportunity to express intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Tommy.
I was going to say, that's one of those ones where a lot of people probably haven't done a full all-out row since they were probably pretty early in CrossFit, because once you figure out how that feels,
right,
you avoid it like the plague.
I've got a friend that's new to CrossFit, okay? So he doesn't know what he's getting into yet. He is 6'5", 250. Ooh. And I want to teach him just some bare bones rowing, and then get some crazy music playing in my garage, somehow get him fired up. And I want to get him to his first touch of the rower to set a PR time that he will never touch for 7 years in CrossFit. He does not know how much it's going to sting.
You might need a new rower after that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So event 5, Nasty Nancy. 5 rounds, 500-meter run, 15 overhead squats at 185 and 125. Now, it seems like that would have been enough. that would have been enough. But then we add in 15 bar facing burpees just for good measure.
This event is my second most favorite event of the competition, if you will. Just because I'm a Nancy fan in general. And what I like about this, first of all, I love the fact that they had athletes run for an online competition. Absolutely adore that. And it's great to know that that is now something that we can pull out if need be in the future, and athletes need to be ready for it. So fantastic. And then the overhead squat is just the most beautiful of all the squats. And I'm not saying that as somebody who's good at it. Like it's not my wheelhouse, but that gives me more of an appreciation for it. And what I love about this also is there's one of those old CrossFit challenges buried somewhere in the journal. I can't remember what it was, but it was like these tests. I'm not using the right terminology, but one of some of them were mixed modality, some of them were standalone. And one of them was you should strive to be able to do 15 overhead squats at body weight. And that was like, if you could do 15 overhead squats at body weight, like pat yourself in the back. That's a heck of an accomplishment. So again, just how far human beings have come. When that was put out in probably, I don't know, 2001, 2 or 3, somewhere around there, that was darn near unheard of, which is why it was put out as one of these incredible tests. 185 is not far off from most of these people's body weight, somewhere in the ballpark, let's just say. And so now they're not just going to do that as a one-time standalone incredible human feat. They're going to do it as like event 5 of there's 75 repetitions at that loading with 2,500 meters of running. Oh, and by the way, 75 bar facing burpees so that your legs and your shoulders that you need to stabilize that ridiculous weight overhead are now fatigued. And so many of these athletes ran their tail off, casually snatched that weight like they were not fatigued in any way, shape, or form, and just burst into sets of 15 continuous, unbroken overhead squats on rounds 1 through 5. It's like you're watching science fiction, really, really. I mean, what these athletes are capable. When I saw this workout, I was like, whoever crushes this workout, there's nothing that you can't do. Okay, maybe I don't know that you can do walk in your hands, like some sort of particular skill. But if you're going to get that barbell fatigue overhead, you've got explosive hips, you've got overhead strength, you've got mobility, you've got below parallel leg drive, you've got an engine, you've got to be able to do gymnastics work, you've got to be able to grind. There's a lot going on just in that Nasty Nancy workout. And I thought it was beautiful. And then, again, Fraser, 1750. I mean, just like a piston on the overhead squats, going up and down. Are you kidding me? And, Katrin crushed it as well. She got 1816. So, I mean, some of the times that were put up, given the loading, given the volume, I loved that event. I thought that event was beautiful. And there's our long time domain, so now we're pushing for, depending upon the athlete, let's just say, 17 to somewhere in the low 20s. Mm-hmm. So great to see that time domain happen.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned that test. I remember when Nicole Carroll was famously trying to get to that, and that was a video series of her making attempts each time. Mm-hmm. She was using those old, like, wobbly squat leg racks out in the parking lot of the
original. I remember that video.
Man, that was great. And now we're seeing, athletes that, like you said, smoke it like it's nobody's business. And not even that. Like, I remember when 18 minutes was a respectable Nancy time.
Sure. Yeah. Is it not anymore?
Yeah, exactly. And that's with, 500 meters fewer running, and double the weight on the barbell. So,
I mean, I think for Nasty Nancy, that was, if you check out, like, okay, the regular Diane weight, and then you've got Damn Dan, and what's the percentage difference in the loading? Because they're all bumped up a bit. I think Nasty Nancy was by far the biggest bump, because a lot of them were like 1.2 to 1.4. Mm-hmm. And Nasty Nancy for the guys, I think, is 1.94 increase and 1.92 for the women. So, I mean, it is almost a double. That was robust, to say the least. And once again, it was not inappropriate for these people.
No.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Event 6. Let me tell you why I love this. the fourth time, how long can you stand in a handstand? The reason I love this is because we've never done it before. But we've had them walk on their hands. We've had them walk through obstacles. We've had them walk all over kinds of stuff. And I think that people get so enamored with that's all they're practicing. Okay, what's the next obstacle going to be? What's this? What I got to make sure I can turn right. Maybe I got to make sure I got to go downstairs instead of upstairs. Maybe I have to go up a ramp. Maybe I have to do whatever. And instead of throwing in another obstacle or another sort of weird twist to that, it's like, no, you just have to stand still. And I don't know how many athletes actually practice that on a regular basis. And that's why I was excited to see how this one played out.
That it kind of touches on what Pat said, where I feel like this is when Mr. Castro was paying attention to what people weren't practicing. And there are little tidbits, I feel like, and the word virtuosity keeps coming to mind to me here every time I talk about this handstand hold. And I think about like learning the basics of gymnastics and things like that. And a basic handstand hold almost feels beneath some of the athletes nowadays because they're like, oh, I got to be able to be dynamic. And they skip that step because they're either on the wall or they want to start handstand walking. And I think this is a nice variation to kind of bring back the Pat. I think you were in attendance that day, but there was a Santa Cruz County Affiliate Cup competition way back in the day that Miranda and Marston and Heber did, and they did the max handstand hold. I don't know if you went to that one, but
I've gone to one. I don't know if I went to that one.
Yeah, it was one of the few times I've ever seen a max handstand hold programmed in competition. But I do remember Mr. Castro being there and thinking about that. I wonder if that's something he'd ever put in the games. And here we are.
I don't have anything bad to say about this. Is my favorite event. This is my absolute hands down favorite. It's not probably the most riveting, and exciting or whatnot, but if I divorce myself of all that, what's going to pack him into the stands, a handstand hold, that's not going to happen. It's the 1 rep max front squat, blah, blah, blah. But for beautiful, simplistic, elegant, just physical test. I mean, it couldn't be simpler, right? We're gonna you get a little box, and we're just gonna see how long you got. You got 20 minutes. Do what you got to do, and what you have to have everything. Again, you have to have everything to make this happen, from coordination, accuracy, agility, balance. You're not going to be weak and do well on this. I'll tell you. So once again, a barbell is not the only way to test strength. I do agree with you. Again, it's one of Dave's maybe not hidden gifts. So one of his gifts is figuring out, okay, everyone's doing functional movements, but what are they not quite doing? And he does really excel at finding that. And I've been very vocal of the fact that, if you oversimplify things to conditioning, barbell, weightlifting stuff, and then gymnastics, there's a heck of a bias a lot to the barbell. People think that's key to fitness, and doesn't have a barbell, it's not a good workout, and that's how I get strong. I don't get strong doing other things. And if you're missing out on the strength and just overall athleticism that can be gained from gymnastics movements, I think you're missing out on a lion's share of some incredible adaptation and capacity. And so potentially, it's like when dumbbells first made their appearance in the open. Everyone since that day has got dumbbells, and I think the community's better for it. More dumbbells in more people's hands is good. And so if maybe something like this shines a light on the importance of gymnastics capacity, because that kind of happened years ago when you could tell you better start running if you want to do well at the games. And the community started running more. That was a good thing. So hopefully this handstand hold does that for some gymnastics capacity. I was absolutely delighted. Yeah. Delighted to see it. And I didn't have a good metric as to what was a good time going to be. I had absolutely no idea until the results came in. So now that I see, that Katrin won it in 2:54 and Noah in 1:37, that means I would be around 4 seconds, if that's where they were. And that tells me this will be something that we see repeated.
Yes.
I don't know when. It might take a decade. But we'll see it, and the top gentleman will not be 1 minute and 37 seconds when that happens.
No. Yeah, it's crazy to think about, even looking at those top times, just being upside down that long. much less actually
get nauseous and black out.
Yeah. The last time Sean was upside down that long, he was doing a keg stand on a
throw off the axis of the earth. We kick Sean upside down like that.
On a keg full of sarsaparilla.
8 people holding me up. His final event, and this is the one from a spectator standpoint I would have loved to have seen, because when I think about this, not in the confines of just someone's gym, but on the floor, let's just say at the Alliant Energy Center in Madison. I think this would be fun to watch the way it would lay out. So we had Awful Annie, 50 down to 10 by 10 of GHD sit-ups and double unders with what's called a drag rope. And if you've never seen this thing, it's like a real thick rope that doesn't spin. Like, it's not designed to spin the same way like one of your speed ropes is. It's, you really got to crank this thing. And you're going to do both of those. And then we had 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of cleans, 275 for the men and 185 for the women. And again, just changing those first two movements and making them more complex probably would have been enough. But then I love the fact that they throw in the heavy barbell, because your midline is crushed, and now you got to clean this weight by any means necessary.
Yeah, you just spent 150 repetitions violently closing your hip and blowing out your midline, and now you need to violently open it, to get this barbell off the ground. And I love the GHD sit-ups in there because they're so deviously devastating, right? I mean, they're not just really hard sit-ups. I mean, they just fatigue you and tax you in a way that interrupts the other movements in the workout, almost regardless of what the other movements are. You didn't really catch your wind. Now your midline, as soon as you take somebody's midline away, you take some capacity based on any other movement away. And 150 is a heck of a dose for almost anybody. 150 under the intensity of a competition when you're trying to go to the games. I would love to check in with some athletes today and tomorrow and see how are they feeling, because in 150 slow GHD sit-ups you might feel, 150 as fast as you can because the world is watching. There's something going on there. And that rope, that drag rope, they were kind enough to send one to me about a year ago. I told Tommy this earlier. I tried it once. It was so darn hard. I hung it up in my garage. I haven't touched it since. It's so demanding. It made me feel not fit. So that stays hung up in my garage. I look at it every now and then. But they were whizzing that thing like I would on a speed rope for double unders. Again, just so I don't think they do it justice, right? They make the workouts look too easy. And I can't remember if it was the day of or the day after, but I missed this workout, and it was one of the ones I was very much looking forward to watching. So I grabbed some lunch, I sat down, I turned on YouTube, and I clicked through the women's, and I saw Cara Saunders. I was like, I'll check her out. And I scrubbed through because I wanted to see how the first 5 cleans went at 185 pounds. I wasn't going to look at the 275s. That'd be too depressing. I can clean 185 slowly. And so I was like, I can't wait to see how much she's fatigued, from the set of 50 and 50. And she was popping that barbell up and down like it was absolutely nothing. I wasn't even happy before her. I was so upset I just paused it and stopped watching because I just felt like such a trash athlete. But I did go back and watch some of them, and they were doing that workout in the 8 to 11 minute range, which I did Annie out of pure coincidence within the last 10 days. And I don't want to get my time wrong, but it was like, I think 7 minutes and change. And I had one trip on the rope. And I just did ab mat sit-ups on the ground. And I didn't stop on any of them. Yeah. And it took me like 7 minutes and change. Tia did this in 8 minutes and 1 second. With the GHDs, with the heavy rope, and with a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 of the clean. They're not even the same workout, but they're loosely based on each other. And once again, mind-boggling what they can do. We got in our Olympic lift. We got in our Olympic lift under fatigue, and this gave us a nice middle of the road time domain. So we had 3 minutes and change, Friendly Fran, 2 minutes and change, Diane. Low 3s to sub 3 for the 1,000-meter row. Nasty Nancy was 17 minutes to the low 20s. The handstand hold was sub 3 for women, sub 2 for men. And now this was like an 8-minute to 11-minute workout. So there was a nice again, I think these were some very nicely programmed events, a really nice test of capacity. And it's tough to argue that, the 5 athletes from each side moving forward don't darn well deserve to be there.
And it really does back up the fact that, and you talk a lot about this, Pat, it doesn't have to be flashy to be effective.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these would have looked, if you think about a lot of these on the games competition floor and the way they would have laid out, it would have been fun to watch. Like, there's that spectacle element that it's added to them.
Absolutely.
But when you think about them in in someone's gym, obviously that's not going to look as sexy. But these are all very simple tests. And
they were beautiful. And this was, I enjoyed watching the online competition. Like it was good. There was a big guy, bald head, that did some of the desk work that was like hit or miss. The guy's a hack. Guy's a total hack. No, it was good, man. I very much enjoyed it. I just noticed you're both wearing football shirts. Trying to notice that.
Football Sunday, dude.
Yeah.
One question. So this is your last question I'm going to ask you, and then
okay,
go because this will launch Tommy and me into our conversation about athletes and stuff like this. And I've asked this question to Neil Maddox. I asked to Danny Sakamoto.
Oh boy.
I cannot figure this out. And you mentioned athletes improving, and that is happening. But why is it that when we get to a competition, it seems like the only people who are actually making gains and getting better are Matt and Tia? I mean, the gap is not closing between them and the competition. And it's not like athletes aren't training. It's not like they aren't watching their nutrition. It's not like they don't have coaches. I cannot for the life of me figure out why no one is even getting close. And meanwhile, Matt and Tia keep making these huge improvements. I mean, Matt PR'd his front squat by 20 pounds. I mean, that's unbelievable. And I don't have an answer for it. I don't know why that is.
I don't have an answer. I have loose theories. I don't have an answer.
All right, what's your? I'll take a loose theory.
All right, one of them actually relates to the NFL. So loop me back to that if I get lost. Right. The first one is, I mean, all of these people that we watch work out. I work out. Nobody watches me, right? I mean, so the people that are good enough that other people want to watch them and sponsors want to sponsor them, and they are not like us. And they are, not nice to say in 2020, they are better than us. They are significantly and substantially, as far as working out goes, in a different universe than we are. So physical capacity, recovery, the whole 9 yards, they're born better. And on top of that, that's their physical capability. Then most of these athletes, if they're going to go as far as they did, not only have the physical capability, genetics, makeup, whatever you want to call it, to be superheroes, but then the great ones also have it between the ears as well. They have that work ethic, that discipline, that dedication, that humility to realize what they're not good at and put in the time, regardless of what their ego has to say, to shore up those weaknesses. And they make tremendous strides, so on and so forth. So I think you've got those people that we're watching, and that's just the cohort in general, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say that's 100 athletes. Well, then out of that 100, you might have 5 or 10. Now, you're already dealing with superheroes. You're dealing with 100 superheroes. But even in those superheroes, you've got the top 5 or 10% that even the regular superheroes look at and go, what's with that guy? What's with that woman? Like we look at the whole 100 like that. And I had a conversation with a gentleman who played in the NFL, and he kind of said, like, anyone you're watching play in the NFL just has a beautiful gift. Mm-hmm. They're an amazingly talented human being that got dealt a different deck of cards than most people did. He goes, but even in that cohort of people, you've got your like 1 or 2 superstars on the team that even though the whole team's amazing, these 2 guys are in a league of their own that just, they seem to do something wild every time they touch the ball. Mm-hmm. He's like, now every now and then you get one of those people that they're just so gifted that sometimes they miss practices and they stay out and they party too late, and it's not fair. They still show up and they're better than everybody hungover. They're better than everybody on 3 hours of sleep. It's not fair. He's like, that's your superstar. He goes, and then there's even one tier above that, which is because that superstar that I just talked about has gifts that we would kill for, but maybe they're lacking a bit of the work ethic because they actually quite don't need it. He goes, but then you'll get that guy every now and then that also has the work ethic on top of being in the top 1% of the superheroes. And when you've got that person, you've got fill in the blank, Bo Jackson, like whoever it is you want to see, that even everyone else is like, I don't know how he did that, and I'm a professional athlete. And so I think maybe you look at the Matt and the Tias, and while they're all in the cohort of amazing athletes, I think they're in that super small slice of the pie that they've not only got the goods to a different degree than even most, but they're so solid between the years. You know, and Tia had her evolution, and it seems like she's there now. But for whatever it is about Fraser, he seems like he always had it. He was just a ferociously confident competitor from day one. How you do that, I don't know. Beats me. So those are my random theories.
No, I like that. I've always said that Matt is the rare and Tia are the rare combination of God-given talent and a maniacal drive to win.
No joke. I mean, no joke. They are astonishing.
All right. Well, Pat, we really appreciate the time. We'll let you go dig into some ice cream or whatever you're going to do on it.
What are you talking about, Sean? All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Take care. Okay.